Welcome, everyone, to Performance Anxiety, the go-to resource for professionals who want to break through performance barriers and inspire meaningful action in every interaction. If you're someone who wants to excel under pressure, this podcast will give you the tools, insights, and strategies to conquer performance anxiety and to show up and shine as your truest and very best self. Speaking of showing up as your truest and very best self, I have someone who's in the truest and very best self business and has been for quite some time, Ryan Carey, the founder of BetterOn. Ryan creates innovative training programs that help professionals improve their video presence and communication skills. His passion is empowering people to become their truest selves inside and outside of work by using the power of video. And we didn't plan this at all. Those bios were written separately. The lead-in was written separately. And here we are with Ryan. Ryan, welcome, sir.
Howdy. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me.
It's great to be here, man, and great to be here with you. And I'm just going to dive right in. Let's talk about LSD. LSD and the mind of the universe.
My God, Michael. Jesus. So for those who are wondering, one of the intake questions to be on this prestigious program is to talk about your favorite book. And I'm not a big reader. You know, I'm not. It's one of those, not many things, probably 10 things that over the years I've gotten better at being like, man, I wish I was that. I wish I was a poet. I'm not a poet. I wish I was a book guy. I'm not a book guy. I read like one per year max. So one of my books from a couple years ago was a book called LSD and the Mind of the Universe, recommended by my amazing therapist. And like a lot of things, LSD, you can't really, you got to kind of do it. You can't really talk about it. So what the book is about a professor in like the 70s and 80s and then maybe even 90s in like a small town, a university town in Ohio, who would experiment on weekends taking incredibly high doses of LSD for years. And in his home, like his wife would like sit with him, and the book covers his 25 years of like secretly going as deep as he can into his own mind under the influence of LSD. And I will stop this rant by saying the first line in the book is, to me, the most powerful, because you're like, oh, this guy does a bunch of drugs, blah, blah. And the first line is, I have never tripped with friends, and I have never done acid at like a show. Just to be like, this is not what you think it is. This is not like a guy who went to a bunch of dead shows. This is a guy who takes his inner world incredibly seriously and found a rocket ship and wrote like a 400-page book about it.
So it sounds like he was doing it alone?
Well, he was doing it, yeah. So he was doing it alone. Like, like, what, you know, like therapy, like psychedelic therapy now has come obviously a long way, but at the time, he had like a space in his attic. He would wear an eye mask, lay on a mattress, and his wife would sit there and kind of take care of him as he went to these places. And his writings are just, you know, this guy, it just makes you, you know, there's just more out there. There's more in there, and there's more out there.
What was one of the most striking things of the text of the book for you?
I think that, from what I can remember, you know, the book was like, you know, structured in a way where it was like the first 8 years is like the initial takeoff. And then the next 4 years are like absolute like death of his identity. And then it's like the next 7 years is like another like stairway to heaven, no pun intended. And then it's like, he basically like has to keep dying on these journeys. And it's just like this guy did the fucking work. And I'm not like a big LSD guy, like, you know, I'm not, but I really kind of like bow in a way to people who go there. And I think because he was kind of, it sounds like a pioneer, nowadays it's way more accepted socially. This guy would go into like his college college class and just be like, teach philosophy. And he couldn't tell anyone about this like decades long journey that he went on.
Who do you remember? Chris,
Is it Chris Bach?
yeah, yeah, Chris Bach. Okay, wow. Okay, this has got to go on the list here. You to okay. You said something about him dying. Can you talk about that part of the book? What did you mean?
Well, so like I think that when an individual is engaged in monumental doses of LSD, you we I they, that individual is on another plane compared to where we are currently on this podcast. And your sense of self is at the very minimal of terms different. I think this is where it's like the way he describes himself and his sense of self is in a language that I've never read before or even thought about before. So the way that he sort of like, you know, takes the reader as best he can as this evolution of himself while he's on these trips, it's like, it's not like, him, the guy on LSD wearing the mask, laying on the mattress is like, it's like that guy's not dying. It's like all of his perceptions are shattered again and again and again. And he just relinquishes control for years. He's just like, take it away, LSD, kill me again. And like, but it's fucking harrowing. Like what this guy sees. And again, like trying to transmit visuals back to this audience from being a reader of that book. It's like, you just got to read it.
LSD and the Mind of the Universe, listeners. Wow. Well, the idea of, because I'm thinking about Joseph Campbell right now. And there's this great video, I think it might even be on my Instagram, about Joseph Campbell talking about death and it's this incredible video, right? Have you seen that Joseph Campbell when he talks about death and he said,
Yeah.
this is the message? Okay. So the guy who's interviewing him talks about the American Indians riding into the hail of Custer's bullets, saying it's a great day to die. And Joseph Campbell says, yeah, they're not hanging on. And then he pauses and he leans in. He goes, this is the message of the myth. You as you know yourself are not the final term of your being. And I'll never, ever, ever forget that. And why this is like coming up big time for me is because when we're talking about being your best self, it feels like sometimes you have to let go of the idea of who you thought you were to arrive at who you really are. And that's the image that I was getting when you were describing this book. And it sounded like many times over, he had the author that you're talking about in LSD and the Mind of the Universe, it seemingly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, had to let go of the idea of who he thought he was in a way.
About that. Yeah. 100%.
Let me ask you this. So your therapist recommended that book.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, that's okay. So full disclosure, my therapist is my longest relationship. And I'm about to be with my partner 16 years. So I've been with my therapist longer than I've been with my partner, Rebecca, and I'm about to be with her 16 years this month. So we have been together for a really, really long time. And you're early on in this conversation, you mentioned your therapist in a way where you're like, she, they, him is amazing. Can we talk about that relationship at all? Are you comfortable in that realm?
1,000,000%. Let's get it out there. I think I'm coming upon 20 years with mine.
Wow. I see. We've known each other a little while, and I didn't know that.
No. I mean, I don't know where to start. We should have. I mean, I could talk forever about it. I mean, high level, there's no way you and I would be here having this conversation, and I would not be who I've tried to be brave enough to become without her support over the years. And in a weird fucking way, we talk about Chris Bosh doing this multi-decade journey, having to like die and like leave who you were. You know, for me, my journey with my therapist, like it was a couple years before I gave up on the like, this is bullshit. You know, I was so resistant in a way and I went along with it. But there's like, since then, for the past 20 years, you know, the biggest moments in my life that I look back on, the biggest risks I've taken, and just like my everyday drive to be myself and be better and be the best version of myself goes back to the work that I've done with her.
What is it about that work that's given you access to your best self?
So many things. I think one, an effective therapist, you know, but I think which to me is an effective mirror. It's having
What
an
does that look
effective
like?
mirror.
Pun
It's
intended.
what's that?
Yeah. What does that look like using, carrying the mirror analogy?
Yeah,
How do you know, how do you know the mirror is effective?
because it sees you and you know you're seen. And
Mm.
I think one of my hangups, of which there were and still are many that I discovered through the journey, is that during a very low point in my life, I didn't know why I was low. I did not know why I was dark. And it was because I did not feel seen. And I think, you know, that opened a door that led to, well, okay, what does it feel like to be seen? Why is it bad not to be seen or feel seen? Why is it good to feel seen? And then what the fuck is being seen? Who is being seen? And who do you want seen? Who do you not want seen? And why don't you want them seen? All that shit. So I think that's one chapter um of uh of my journey there.
I feel like we've already gotten to a moment where on the Actors Studio, James Lipton had Steven Spielberg on, and Steven Spielberg is, or James Lipton's like, in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, how does how do the aliens communicate with each other? And he reveals, and he like makes Steven Spielberg realize that he never realized before in his life, that his mother was a music teacher and his dad was a computer scientist, and that is how the aliens communicate with whatever. And he's like, I never realized that until this moment. And James Lipton in his research realized that. So I would say, given your current profession, given your current business and venture, um, it's no mistake that being seen is something. Can you talk about BetterOn? Can you talk about being seen? It would just seem like you're one of the few people that I know that's really gone all in on their purpose, and there's no separation between what you believe in your soul and what you do for other people in business and in life. How did wanting to be seen yourself lead to helping others do the same thing? What does it mean to be seen? How do you do that for other people?
Uh, let me kind of go into it, but I've never been able to take the through line of what I just said, that one of the gifts I got from therapy, into explaining what BetterOn is. But I think what we're talking about represents, to me, is something that I've learned that's gotten me here in like a lot of ways, is like, I never want, because of the way I felt when I felt unseen and misunderstood, I never want anyone to feel that. So I'm going to do everything I can to make whoever I can feel seen and feel understood. Now, the way that I've evolved as a human from birth happens to kind of roll with that, which, you know, that's the kind of person I am. All that to say, BetterOn was not always BetterOn. It just kind of, that name clicked, as many things have clicked over the years. But, you know, I think where we are, and stop me, because of course I'm going to be all over the map with this, but the BetterOn is trying to give people the gift of themselves, trying to give people a glimpse of their own individuality and get something wonderful out of it. And in the process, learn how to give it in a way that they want to, that feels true to them, that doesn't feel forced, doesn't feel fake, doesn't feel corporate. It is them being themselves. And, before you can put on someone else's air mask, you got to put on your own. And I think BetterOn, and there's a whole journey of mine that got me to having the confidence to take the risk, to being like, I'm going to fucking do this. And I still every day have to be like, are you really? And it's like, yes. Cup of coffee every morning. I'm going to fucking do this today. It's really about, at the individual level, like every person. And it continues to be an incredible gift I've given myself by choosing this road. So sure, I've done the work of seeing myself and being like, yep, there I am. There you are. You're there. It's like, but it's really such a gift to me to be able to unlock that in one, or even now we're closing in on probably like 1,000 people,
There was an article that came out like today in the Harvard Business Review to the effect of everyone is still really lonely at work. And we did a study, and it doesn't matter that we're in person, and it doesn't matter this, doesn't matter that. Everybody's still really lonely. As someone who has been in and out of these rooms and some of the biggest companies on the planet, why do you think nowadays that's the front page article on the Harvard Business Review? Why we're still lonely at work? Why do you think that is?
Well, I can tell
That's
you.
a big question, I know.
Well, I mean, I feel like, let me start by saying the reason I believe that I'm qualified to answer this is because I've been super fucking lonely before too. And I at times am currently lonely during my life. Loneliness, I think the reason is that it needs to be, it needs to be treated as something bigger than it is. And I sure as shit don't have, too many global health solutions for loneliness. But I think at the top of the list is definitely technology, like without a doubt. I think that what technology has done from, the angle of increasing isolation to rewiring how our emotions emote within ourselves, to how increasingly negative those are versus the burst of, positivity or whatever. Yeah, it's like, it's an epidemic or whatever we want to call it. And it's really hard to break out of because, it kind of Venn diagrams into mental wellness or lack thereof. And it's hard to be serious about that, I think, for a lot of people.
What do you mean?
Well, I think we're still learning the tools needed at an individual level, at a global, I don't think we're there globally, but just on what it takes to get out of that, to get healthy. Loneliness is not healthy. So what's the medication or the kind of behavioral change needed to get unlonely? And it's not just walk out and see people. This gets us into connection. I kind of think connection is the cure for loneliness. Well, to connect, we probably have to have a sense of ourselves first. And I'm sure that most people at any age, as I think about this, are not connected to themselves. And no.
How does one come upon connecting to themselves?
Call me and call BetterOn. And I
I love that. And someone of course that ask how, what does that look, without maybe giving away secret sauce or anything, like how does that work?
No. I mean, look, so I definitely know this is not meant to be a plug at all for BetterOn, but the way we do it, I'll give away the recipe every day, all day. It's record yourself and watch yourself. Record yourself trying to connect.
With what? With, or who?
What's that?
With who or what? Connect with who or what?
That's where you get to put in, that's where you get to fill in the blank. It's like, who do you want to connect with? But at the end of the day, doing that by yourself, Oh, actually, going back to my therapist, shit, one of the best things she's ever told me was the best cure for loneliness is solitude. And I kind of think that, if you're feeling lonely, that's one thing. But if you're alone and kind of doing something with the time and finding value or purpose or enjoyment in it, that's different. And they're not really even two sides of the different coin because they're so far away, I think. But all that to say is from how, BetterOn's goal is not to solve loneliness. However, we do help people connect to themselves by giving them a safe space to record themselves and watch themselves. But I think overall, what somebody could do, is, I don't know. I mean, for me, it's therapy. For me, it has become recording myself and watching myself, which is now second nature to me. But in the beginning, I learned quickly, and one of the reasons that BetterOn exists is I spent a lot of time recording myself for a YouTube channel and inevitably watching myself be like, well, this is what people are going to see. I want to see what they see, being like, okay, sure, it's a video thing, but man, do I feel better upstairs. So I realized there was a mental health benefit.
Well, oh, could you talk more on that? What was it about recording yourself and then watching yourself that was beneficial for you?
I think so. Before BetterOn and what led to BetterOn was me making a web series where I was trying to connect with an audience. So it wasn't just me in a bubble. It was me trying to get attention. Like, if you put something out on video, you're probably going for some sort of attention. But before I would put the video out, I would look at it to see what they were going to get. And it was really illuminating, not just to see myself and hear myself, but to observe myself, not just trying to get attention, but to give my own presence.
What's the
And
difference? Ooh.
I mean, I think trying to get attention has a real shitty reputation. And this takes me back to when I was a kid, as I've thought about why I am the way I am over the years. But I'm an only child. And, when I was a kid, like, I just, I'm an extrovert. Like, I just kind of just like wanted to dance and sing and tap and whatever. And I think I was often met with like, don't be a show off and like, don't try and get attention. And it's sort of like being like, oh, if you're a flower, don't beg for water, flower. Just fucking deal with it. And as a society, we're just like, no. It's like, don't ask for what you need. You don't need attention. It's like, are you kidding me? I want to be fucking seen. Everybody wants to be fucking seen for who you are. I think because that is, I'm not going to go around being like, hey, I don't know, like, hey, let me teach you how to go get attention. That's not going to fly. It's like, hey, let me teach you how to give who you are. But before you can give it, you've got to know it.
I love this, Ryan. One of the things that I've come to maybe over the last year is the idea of like, what can one really promise? And one of the things that always irks me is like when I get these messages on LinkedIn, like, we're going to guarantee you leads, blah, blah, blah. You know what? I'm like, okay, great, fantastic. If that's the case, here's my deal for you. You can take 20% of the gross on anything you sell. Just mention your name. Legit. And to anybody hearing this, if you're going to refer clients to Soho Creative Studio and they mention your name, I will give you 20% of the gross fee. That's all you got to do. And the point that I'm trying to make, in like not so elegantly in kind of a dickish way, is that like you really can't guarantee attention. And as someone who's literally at YouTube, and we talked about this before, you were at YouTube in its infancy. What would that thing that companies would come to, and the question they would ask was, how can we go viral? And then what was your answer to that? Like, because it's like, okay, you want to coach us, so how can we go viral? What's the recipe for going viral? Is there a recipe for going viral?
There's not. And it taught me young. I would just be like, there was no recipe. You cannot. So it taught me, I mean, aside from the magic that was YouTube and where I am now and all this stuff, it was a lesson in kind of sticking to my guns with what was true. Where it's like, you got whoever, Coca-Cola, NBC, these big corporate dogs in the early days of video being like, ooh, all right, tell us the secret. We got a lot of money. And I'm like, it doesn't fucking work like that. Like, I'm sorry. So it just got me, it made me confident because of where I was. I was just like, no, sorry. And I kind of have stuck to that the whole way through because the only thing that ever worked on YouTube was authenticity. And you can't buy it. You can't even always sell it. You might get lucky, but like I kind of took I don't know, what I like the YouTube ecosystem of the time, which has exploded now into a million galaxies, and just kind of like drilled it down and down and down underneath the microscope and was just like, helping people be who they are, not for YouTube's sake, for their own sake, is like a step in the right direction. And hopefully my way of helping humanity.
The parallels to being an actor, whenever I hear you speak, Ryan, are like incredible. And one of the bigger mistakes that I made as an actor is to go into a room and try to get the job and try to give them what I think they wanted to see rather than my interpretation of the character based on the text and then let it go. And I think it's hard, especially in business, for people to hear. But, we do video as well in a very different way than BetterOn. But it's like, I cannot guarantee, I can guarantee that if you put your truest and very best self out there, good things will likely happen. That's my guarantee for you. And in a way, I always say, like, I make the same guarantee that you and the same promise that you make with your surgeon. The surgeon, before you go into surgery, you literally sign on the dotted line saying, this will likely go well. Likely go well. But you know what? You might die in there. You might not go well. So even your surgeon cannot guarantee when you go in for a very, very minor procedure that you might never wake up again. So the promise that I always try to make is like, likely it will go well, but I would shy away from people who think they guarantee it. And then also one of the other problems that I saw as an actor is if I was showing up in rooms as a different person every time and no one got to know who the fuck I was. Because who's Michael Cinquino? He was this person on this one day and he's this person on this day. And it's like, there was no consistency in my behavior or personality because I was always like, what do you need? What do you want? I'll become that. What do you need? What do you want? I'll become that. So what I'm hearing you say in a way, Ryan, is like, to be who you are and in a way and do that consistently and honestly and with empathy and love. And then whatever happens is whatever happens. I mean, is that accurate?
Yeah. And everything you just kind of put into that package, to me, I try to see as a muscle that the more you see it like that is a muscle, the more you do it like that definitely is a muscle.
Can you talk about practice? Because one of the things that I know sets you all apart from most other organizations that deliver information and quote, help people. You and BetterOn is hardcore when it comes to actually putting in the reps. Can you and for good reason, because if you're creating a space where people don't get to practice, you're creating a space where people get to be who they really are without fear of ruining their relationships and their life, because you don't get to practice that in your day-to-day life, and not have consequences. So can you talk to me about where your passion around practices come from?
That's a great question. I mean, I think this is, I don't know. I mean, I don't actually know where it all, well, I think it comes from a couple places. One, I guess I used to be committed to yoga. That was a practice. I'm kind of out of practice with that. But I think I learned, like a lot of things, working for a long time. Not that I'm not working now, like going to therapy, like committing to anything, spending your time doing anything regularly, takes commitment and takes energy. And I think that as I sort of let a lot of the things that didn't matter and don't hold value to me fall away, the things that have begun to matter became more clear. And when I've thought about my life and how much time or I may or may not have, it's like, what are you going to do with your time? And it's like, well, I could do a bunch of new shit every day, or I could do the same thing really well for myself or for any other reason I think it's worth it. And I think that that's kind of where I am today. I don't know. I guess the original practice, like, I guess in my mind, like, I always saw myself as kind of like lazy. And maybe I was labeled that. I've had to work through, you know, like a label I was given one time. Like I was a C student. And then I got a job at YouTube and it's like, hey, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not a fucking idiot. No, you're not. So it's sort of like letting go a lot of this stuff. And as that has fallen away, it's allowed me to be like, all we have is now, all we have is the moment. What are you going to do with the moment? And to me, it's do what feels true, which I've learned through years of therapy. Like, what does that mean to me? Which is different than you or somebody else. But if you can practice living in the moment as much as you can, there's no other better way to live, really. And then helping other people, not do that. Cause like, I'm not teaching people to be me, obviously. I'm like, here's a space, here's a mirror, here's a real supportive individual who really gives a shit about this work more than you'll ever know until you get to the finish line. Like, I can't guarantee you're going to wake up from the surgery, but you probably will. And it's probably going to be better than you thought. Like, that's kind of where that's what I'm practicing for.
How do you deal with the anxiety that comes with being in front of one of these things? And for our listeners and not viewers, I look directly into the camera lens for effect. If there's just something, yeah, I'd love to hear your take. I mean, myself, like having spent the last 20 years either in front of or behind a camera lens, there is just something about having a camera pointed at you that does something to most all human beings, even the most well-trained actors that I've spent plenty of time around. What do you say to somebody who is apprehensive about stepping out of their comfort zone and into the frame of a camera?
Say a lot. The first thing that comes to mind is no one fucking cares. It is your job to try and hope they care. And that takes work. So if you can change one thing in your mind, it's that if you're anxious or nervous or scared because you think someone is going to see how you feel, not the case. They are so far away from connecting with you because we are all lonely and disconnected that it's your job to take that fear and turn it into fire and try and grab that person. And that's where you take perceived weakness and turn it into strength. And it's hard to do by yourself because a lot of people are just like, oh, I don't know what to fucking do here. And I will say for me, being in front of a room, on a stage, in person, is a whole different world than me being in front of this little webcam. One of the reasons I've decided to make a business out of this little webcam and the power of it is because I'm real shaky in person. I'm real shaky on a stage. And I've had way more, debilitating anxiety in that space where I'm like, oh, so I have a choice? I could do what everyone's done for years where it's like, hey, come take public speaking training. No thanks. Or we can adapt my fear and take this space that happens to be growing by the minute, thank God, and work with people on it. So I don't know. I think, I don't think I'm a competitive person by nature. I know a lot of people who are. However, when it comes to this space between me and a camera, I'm like, there's a fire in me now that wasn't always there where I'm like, I'm going to connect better than the next fucking guy. You better believe it. Like, you're going to feel me connect. And that's my internal, monologue.
What was a shift for you? Because you mentioned that it wasn't always that way. What changed?
I think because we're living in a time in the world and I'm sitting in a space where I can create a life around it.
Around the camera.
Yeah, like around this, I can sort of go towards the fire instead of running away from it. I can help people. Well, it's so weird. It's like it's uncharted territory. Like, you know what I mean? Even though we're doing this all the time, and like it's still this like Mars situation.
I mean, it's my observation that, like you're saying, things are growing like crazy. I mean, the amount of people that are not using video, even in this day and age, is abso-freaking-lutely staggering. I mean, the space in the market to get in front of a camera and to just share a little bit about who you are is still like, I mean, like just go on any small business website wherever you are in the country. I can guarantee you most of the owners of those companies or leadership have no presence at all on camera whatsoever. And there's just and like the reach, like I mean, like and even like not to talk about politics, but I saw a statistic about the viewership of Joe Rogan's 11 million. The viewership of Fox, MSNBC, and ABC is 5 million.
No way.
Yes.
Right. Yes. Right. Yes.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And it's like for the one of the presidential candidates was pushed to go on this show. And it's like, going back to the camera, like, and thinking back to the election between JFK and Richard Nixon, that on-camera interview or the debate where JFK was on camera and Nixon was there, that lost Nixon the election. He looked bad on camera because he wasn't really used to the medium. And then you look at JFK, he's got his legs crossed, he's looking good, and the perception shifted immediately because of this image. So I mean, like for me, for any business owner out there, I think, Ryan, like, and I see it, like, what do you feel about, like, because a lot, like, I get in front of audiences. I just did a workshop at UNH last night for another instructor there. And one of the things that I always pick up on is this idea that I have to do it right. And it is a fucking mortal sin if I do not check the boxes of, quote, doing it right. And there is no space at all to try something and to fail. Like zero. Like, and I was like, guys, I'm like, you're so hard on yourselves. I go, how did that go for you? Which is something that I steal from Jamie Carroll, my acting teacher. And I've learned before I speak to go, how did that go for you? And let people self-assess. They're like, oh, that was just terrible. It was just really awful. I just wasn't prepared. I'm like, my God, like you did well. Like, we're so hard. Like, what is like, do you see that in the folks that you work with? Like this not holding space? Like, I mean, there's just, do your clients, are they hard on themselves too? Not so much, or?
It kind of varies. I mean, that's the beauty. We've seen so many different kinds of people. I think one thing that I see is this deep appreciation for a practice space. Because in a lot of ways, I feel like people need practice from, like, we as a society need more practice feeling places for things than we may think. And to touch on something that, talking about this workshop you did, I have a couple of fears, major fears. My number one fear in the world is driving over bridges.
I didn't know that.
My number two is introducing myself in a circle of people. There is no more horrifying set of words than an individual extremely casually saying, why don't we just go around the room and introduce ourselves?
What is it about that I never would have guessed that about you?
Well, actually, you know where I think it originally comes from? I don't know where it is now, but I still have it. I used to have a real bad stutter. And I experienced not a good amount, enough public embarrassment where I could not get the words out in front of a group. And I'm sure that that's what happens actually when I'm in, because the pressure of saying what is conceivably the most easily accessible information we all know is, who are you? Why can you not do that? So part of it is the performance side. Like, can I get it out there? And my brain's always like, not gonna do it. Now, the other side of it is that, like, That's the hardest question in the world. Who am I? I'm asking myself that every fucking day. So it's this juxtaposition of just like, meh, easy, just say the easy thing. And it's like, oh no, there is a deep cavern here that I must present to you and I can't fuck it up. So it's like, I need a practice space for a practice space to sit in my like kids orientation group with other parents kind of thing, you know?
I'm
And
dying.
to close out on this point, the reason I love video is that the way we do it, you pre-record it. If you fuck up, you trash it. If you fuck up, you trash it until you get a good one, and then you show the world the good stuff.
Dying, dear. Yeah, you brought me back to analyze this when Billy Crystal's at the table at the end. They're like, "Who are you?" He's like, "Who am I?" Or who am I? Or who am I? Because who am I is a question for the ages. But who I am, like, is very big. Like, no, I get. But the thing is, I mean, I think we even did it together. Just getting founders on camera to say, "Who are you and what does your business do?" It's like you've asked them which child we should murder. Like, pick one. Like, and even like Princeton, Yale educated founders. I'm like, who are you and what do you do? It's like cannot answer the question. But in a workshop, and I'm doing a workshop in 2 days. So the way that I circumvent that is to have them introduce somebody else. And I'm like, just learn as much as you can about this person and introduce the other person. You don't have to introduce yourself. Because I like you, it's just so. What do you fucking say? What do you say? It's either too mundane or too much. Like, it's like, what? Who am I? How do I define myself? Like, and someone that's read The Untethered Soul, it's like, well, who are you? Were you not Michael Cinquino before you were given that name? Were you not a human being before you were given that name? If you did not work the job, you just say, I do this for work. Well, if you didn't work that job, are you no longer who you are? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so this existential part of me is like, no. So I totally hear you, but like, I'm just picturing you like in that circle. Why don't we just go around one by one? It's like in the slow motion. Why don't we just go around one by one and introduce ourselves? And you're like, no,
I mean,
no. Like, I can see it, man. Like, yeah, so it's just fascinating how I love that, of course, and then here, and then one of the things that came up as well is like we spend our childhood getting damaged and then the rest of our adult life trying to undo that damage. And I know that's again another kind of cliched thing, but for me it's been true. It's why I'm not in crisis anymore, but I continue to see my therapist once a month. There's still work to do. I still watch patterns. I still see circles places that I wind up in that I don't consciously wanted to have wound up in, kind of thing. So yeah, man. Back to attention, and we're actually wrapping up here. I'm actually, I'm going to hold that thought. We're not going to get on the attention thing because I want to ask you these questions.
okay.
So this brings me to the point in the episode where I get to ask the questions from inside the actor's studio. James Lipton is no longer with us, and so these questions were some of the coolest questions I get to hear actors answer and get to hear the different answers to different questions. So I'm in a way carrying on that tradition and seeing what comes up for people. But this is from the Bernard Pivot questionnaire, and Lipton would say the Bernard Pivot, like, that whole, he would do it with his accent. I can't do that. These are like James Lipton's questions. So he appropriated from Bernard Pivot. I've appropriated from James Lipton, and I get to ask these questions at the end of every podcast. So with that being said, the first question, Ryan, what is your favorite word?
Absolutely.
What is your least favorite word?
Hate.
What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Other people's stories.
What turns you off?
Everything else. Small talk.
What's your favorite curse word?
As if there's a million to choose from. I'm going to go with fuck.
What sound or noise do you love?
Ray Anastasia's guitar.
What sound or noise do you hate?
A certain politician's voice.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Nursing.
What profession would you never like to do?
Sales.
Last question. If heaven exists and you believe in such a thing, what would you like to hear God say when you reach the pearly gates?
You took the right risks.